here's what I want to say. I'm super excited about today's conversation because I am passionate about feminine leadership. I am passionate about feminine energy. I believe that we need more of it, not just in our personal lives and relationships, but also in business and in professional spaces. And that is not just for women. Men also need to become more comfortable with their feminine energy. We have both, and both is what, in my opinion, brings harmony. And so I could not wait for today's talk. I am going to kick this off by passing the mic to Ava Laura. And I would love for Ava Laura to introduce herself. Hi, Stacy. Thank you so much for joining us. Introduce herself. And then let's start right away with a hot, juicy nugget that has to do with either leading, living, or loving life on your own terms. Ava Laura, the mic is yours.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. This is so exciting. I've never done an audio event before, so I'm very excited. I am Ava Laura Gaither, an intuitive consultant. This is a perfect, this is the majority of my clients, high profile, overage, who don't need energy as much as they could.
Ava Laura, hold on. Let me stop you for 1 second. Because every time that you take a breath, your mic is muting.
Really?
Yes, and so I'm not really sure why it's doing that, but every time there's a short silence, you're muting. And so I'm not sure if you're using a headset, but you may.
I'm not even.
I don't know. Are you on your phone or a computer?
I'm on my computer.
Okay, you may want to leave and come back on your phone.
All right, let me try that.
Okay, no problem. No problem. It'll put you back on stage when you come back. I'm going to pass the mic to Victoria. Hi, Janice. So nice to see you. Victoria, if you can introduce yourself and then start with a really hot golden nugget on leading, living, or loving life on your own terms.
Thank you, Dr. Lynette, for, first of all, organizing and hosting this wonderful LinkedIn audio event. I feel so grateful to be here today among so many powerful women. I also want to acknowledge the attendees, Spring, my friend Julio, Stacy, and Janice. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so grateful to be here with Ava Laura and Janai as well. A little bit about me, I suppose that the most important thing you could know about me is that one of my core values is leading with my heart. I'm a very heart-centered person, and that is how I lead both my personal life and my professional life. And the little golden nugget I want to leave everyone today is one of the best things I ever did for my career and also for my personal life was learn how to have self-love, self-compassion, self-acceptance, and self-forgiveness. These things were core pillars to my career success. And I think not enough women say to other women, especially minorities, that it is okay for us to love ourselves as much as we love other people. And so that is a golden nugget that I want to leave here with you today. I encourage you to love yourself and accept yourself unapologetically. The magic that comes from that is indescribable and it's infinite, and it makes you more open not only to receive the love from others, but to be that emanation of love. So yeah, super grateful to be here today, and I hope that I can share a bit of wisdom that has helped me in my life, and hopefully it can help you in yours.
Well, and there we go. We start right away with something that you can use today. I love it. Absolutely. Okay. Janae, I am definitely counting on you to bring some hot, yummy juiciness to this conversation. And so the mic is yours.
Hello, mic check. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Am I clear?
Yes, you are.
Wonderful. Hello, loves. My name is Janae K, Feminine Embodiment Coach to Iconic Women, and it is my absolute pleasure to serve women on a journey of self-discovery, leading to self-mastery through what I call the art of becoming a sensuous woman. With that being said, the first tip I would like to share today is start infusing pleasure into your everyday. Explore ways to either elevate, luxuriate, or glamorize your daily routines, your daily habits, or your daily experiences. An example may be take your business call or your business meeting in lingerie. Make sure you have on perfume or smell goods that feel good on your body or on your skin. Find ways to make the smallest moments more memorable. And that's my tip.
And so, thank you so much, Janae. And let me remind you guys, I did start this call with a disclaimer that today is going to be no topics off limits day. So if you have minors in the room, you may want to put on some headsets, or you may want to change your location because it's going to be sizzly in here this morning. Hi, Charmaine. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, Ava Laura, let's see how you're doing with your mic this time.
Microphone check.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep, that sounds great. Now let's see if it keeps you unmuted.
I know, right?
Yes. It did it.
Okay, yes. Okay, improvement. There we go. Sometimes we just have to leave and come back, and it just works.
Awesome.
I am Ava Laura Gaither, your life coach and intuitive consultant, and I work with high-achieving, overachieving women who really want to live their best life and haven't figured out how to do it. And I love this topic. I recently just wrote a self-love journal called Girl, Live Your Fucking Life. So I like that this is all topics here. And I did that because, we talk about these things. We talk about self-care. We talk about self-love. We talk about self-mastery and all of these things. And I'm like, you know what? It's 2024. We can't baby step this anymore. It's past time. It's over time. And so let's take the kitty gloves off and let's just make sure we're actually doing what we're saying we want to do. I love what Janae K said, because I am wearing my smell goods right now. Even though a lot of the work that I do is virtual, I absolutely love wearing smell goods or having my candles or my incense while I am teaching or speaking. It really adds to the environment. And it does help me to connect better to the event or whoever I'm speaking to. So I love that. Thank you. My tip for you all is something that I often say when I'm teaching about, self-love and self-care, is understanding that self-love is really self-care is really self-love in action. So if you say that you love yourself, then you absolutely have to practice self-care, because you take care of the things that you love. For those of you who have children, for those of you who have fur babies, or if you like me, you have your plant babies, you would not take care of your children. You would not feed your children when they're hungry or give them something to drink when they're thirsty. You would not give your plant babies water, right? You take care of the things that you love. So I want you to think about self-love in that way, that really self-love is really just saying, I really do love myself. When you're caring for yourself, you're saying that you really do love yourself. And you're not just talking about it. You're not just saying that this is important, but you're actually going through the motions to be committed to yourself.
And there we have it. I told you guys to be ready. Put on your boots. It's getting deep. I want to go to Victoria. because Victoria, I know that you are very, very passionate about leadership consulting, and especially in the bilingual space. And I would love to hear what your thoughts are on what Janae and Ava Laura just shared based on your experiences with your clients.
Well, first of all, I couldn't agree more with what Ava Laura and Janae was saying, because certainly in the Hispanic space and for minorities, I believe in general, the idea of self-love and self-care is oftentimes foreign. I'm a first-generation Mexican-American, so I've observed just from my own community, from my own family, that to be a quote-unquote good Mexican woman or mother or Hispanic or Latina, whatever term you want to use, you have to give and be selfless and always be in this position of service. And so that will burn anyone out very quickly, because obviously you cannot pour from an empty cup. So one of the things that I teach in the leadership consulting that I do in the business space, and specifically for women, is the idea that it is okay and they do have permission to pour into their own cup first. It's the safety mask example that we're always given when we're on flights. And Ava Laura talked about the idea of doing, like actually take that step, take action. Don't just talk about loving yourself, do something. Light a candle, go for a walk, do something that's going to be a reflection of you investing into your own self-care so that you can show up better for the people in your community, for your clients, customers, etc. So it is a topic that is, it's hard, at least in my experience and the conversations I've had with women, minorities in my community. It's so hard for women to give themselves permission to unapologetically pour it into themselves as much as they pour into others. But once they do, they get it. It's like something clicks in their head and they're like, oh, I understand now why I'm supposed to quote unquote put on my safety mask first. I understand now why my cup needs to overflow and I need to give from the overflow. Otherwise, there's just simply nothing to give. And once that click happens and the action steps start to happen as well, there's this sense of safety and peace, I believe, that comes over a woman, and hopefully then that gets passed on to another generation of females, gets passed on to their daughters, so that this idea of self-care and action keeps perpetuating generation after generation.
That is absolutely on point, I feel, for or across cultures. We really do have to focus so much more on more being and less doing. And I know that the being is something Janae talks about a lot as well. And so Janae, when you are working with iconic clients, what is the biggest challenge you see them facing in terms of being free and really leading, living, and loving life on their own terms?
The biggest challenge that I see amongst those women is the fact that they are attaching their self-worth to what they're doing. And so the concept of being becomes very foreign because they're dealing with perfectionism issues and believing that their level of success, their titles, their degrees, their certifications, or other accomplishments defines who they are. And so when you try to get them to focus and shift who they are to who they are and not who they are choosing to show the world, it becomes scary for them. And then you start to see some resistance and some fear showing up, because when you ask them to let people see who they really are, if their self-worth is not cultivated, then they become afraid.
And Ava Laura, I know that you see exactly what Janae has described when you're working with your clientele. What suggestions, what steps, what tips can you give for helping them to take off the mask and be comfortable showing up as who they really are?
Yeah, Janae, you really hit the nail on the head. When she was talking, I was like, yes, that is my client. And, the thing about it is we live in a culture, right, in a society, especially now with the internet, with social media, where people have gotten used to presenting with their mask. Right? The pictures that you see on social media, the video, whatever it is, we're showing people what we want them to see. So it's very easy to get trapped in that, to live from that space and not, from your authentic space of, okay, this is who I truly am. So most people haven't had to really deal with who they truly are because they're only presenting the mask to the public. And so a lot of what I have to do with my clients, well, first, let me say that it is scary, certainly, for anybody. And what ends up happening is a lot of women don't even start the healing process until something happens where they can no longer avoid it. So it might be, some type of wake-up call, like a divorce. It might be, loss of a loved one. It might be, you're an empty nester and your kids are now leaving the nest, right? It might be a loss of a job or, some type of career transition. And so usually they're coming at a time of transition or a time of crisis and saying, okay, I've been avoiding this. I knew there were things going on, but now it's really showing up in my work. It's showing up in my relationships. It's showing up in, with my family. And so now I have to deal with it. So you really have to get to that place first and foremost that you are ready to become self-aware. You're ready to show up authentically. You're ready to deal with whatever it is. And usually what it is not what we think it is, right? I'll have women come to me and say, well, I'm on the verge of a divorce, or I'm having problems in my relationship with my husband. And we peel back the layers. And of course, it has nothing to do with that. There's some type of childhood trauma, or there's some type of belief systems that they have, been working through or from childhood that they're not even questioning, not even thinking about, believing that it's real, and it's causing all types of havoc in their life. And so it's usually, the root problem is usually always something other than how it's presenting on the surface. But the first step is really awareness. Let me become aware. What's really going on here? Let me have some clarity about what's happening in my life. And then really deciding, okay, I don't know fully what's going on, but I see enough to know that I'm ready to live a different life. I am ready to live my best life. I am ready to be authentic. And even though I don't totally know what that looks like, I'm ready to get help to do that. And that's what it takes. It really takes the readiness. It takes the willingness. It takes the openness. And it takes the moving through the fear. Because it is scary. It is going to be work. You are going to be challenged. But let me tell you something. The women that I work with, they've been through challenges. They've been scared. They've done all of this before. It's just now really embracing this in their personal life.
That was amazing. And that made me think, Victoria, I'm coming to you because what that made me think of is a conversation I had recently with someone of Hispanic, Latino culture. And she was explaining to me how she worked so many years or practiced so many years to get rid of her accent. Her English was absolutely impeccable. There was no accent detected at all. And so many people were surprised to find out that she was Latina. So my question, or the conversation, Victoria, I would like to have is, how would you support, how would you guide women that you work with in really getting beyond the fear that Ava Laura was just talking about, and being okay with embodying, embracing, flaunting, which is what I like to say, their uniqueness, and not feeling like they have to spend years practicing hiding their accent or anything else about their culture?
Ooh, I love this topic for so many reasons. I will answer with a story. Both of my parents had accents. Both my parents were born and raised in Mexico. We came over to the States in 1990. My dad, was a captain for United Airlines, and when he would speak into the little intercom thing, he would tell me this is the only reason I know. He would tell me that his co-pilots and just some of the United crew would kind of poke fun at him, and they would call him, I believe, as Ricky Ricardo from I Love Lucy. Not gonna lie, it's a show I did not watch, but apparently there's a character on I Love Lucy that my dad sounded like. I believe this character is of Hispanic descent and had an accent. So they would kind of poke fun at my dad's accent. My mom has a very heavy accent, and we lived in a very predominantly white community in the mountains of Colorado. So we were, truthfully, like, as far as I could see and as far as I knew, the only Mexican family living in this tiny little mountain town in Colorado. So anytime we would go out somewhere public, in the mountains, restaurant or grocery store, whatever, and someone or a group of people heard us speaking Spanish, inevitably heads would turn and people would stare, because they weren't used to hearing people, speaking in Spanish and shopping around. And so I became used to the head turns and the stares and the comments, and it just became part of my reality. I too, Lynette, have received comments from people who say things along the lines of like, oh, I had no idea you were Mexican. You have no accent. And I've never really taken these things as microaggressions. I just kind of listen to what people have to say. But the few times in my life where people have made, I would say, kind of rude or like maybe degrading comments about more so my mom's heavy accent, I like to counter those comments with an observation. And what I tell people is that if you ever hear an accent, it's a sign of courage. Why? Because that person had to leave their home country, wherever it is. Doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be a Latin American country. That person had to leave their home country to come to the United States or go to whatever other country, and not only learn a new language, but learn a new culture and completely adapt to a new society and a new way of living. That takes a tremendous amount of strength and courage. So to me, the way that I've always viewed accents is, in my head, I'm like, wow, that person is really strong and courageous. Because sometimes accents can be viewed, misconstrued as a sign of like lack of intelligence. Sometimes I've heard people speak really slowly to my mom because they think she doesn't understand. And my mom is an interpreter, and she does a lot of translations as well. And so when they hear her heavy accent, sometimes they'll speak to her slowly, almost like the way that you'd speak to like a 3-year-old. It's really condescending. And my mom, and so in observing this, my mom has always been very polite, and that, of course, is a big trigger for me to hear people speak very, very slowly to her as if she wasn't going to understand. And so my quote-unquote clap back is by saying, hey, hear an accent, immediately in your mind, know that is a sign of courage. Know that is a sign of strength. Know that is not due to a lack of intelligence, but rather an excess of intelligence, because it takes a lot of brain power to speak 2 or more languages. I mean, it's truly a superpower. I've always viewed my bilingualism and my biculturalism as my personal superpower. So that is what I would love to say about that comment, especially because it has been a part of my life forever, and I've been observing it my whole life. And yeah, that's just a little story that I'd like to leave there to illustrate my viewpoint and how I view accents.
Well, there you have it. Now, what I love so much about her response, in addition to the fact that it was an amazing response, this is a demonstration of how we really need to become comfortable with who we be and showing up in this world in our purpose. Why am I saying that? Because one of the things, I am a planner, I am a perfectionist recovering, and I would prefer to do this with a list of questions already prepared. And I am constantly being challenged not to do that. Victoria and I have never, ever, ever had that conversation. I had no idea she had that experience. But that was the question that I felt led to ask her, and it was a perfect story to illustrate. And so again, I am sharing this tidbit with you because I want you to open yourself to being used for your purpose, because we all have one, and sometimes it doesn't feel comfortable, it feels scary. However, it's a purpose that only you can do, only you can fulfill. And so this just excites me so much. I want to say hello and welcome to Jessica. I see that she has joined. And Shara, I see that you have joined as well. And I also see that your hand is raised. Please keep it raised, and I promise that we will make time and room for you to come on stage and share with us. Okay, I want to segue to Janae, because as Victoria talked about courage, what I thought about is the courage to love. There are so many conversations happening right now about women and relationships. So it's the relationship with yourself and loving yourself, yes. But right now, I want to talk about a relationship where you're loving someone else. A lot of women have become jaded, have become cynical, have become so hurt by past relationships that they are not open to receiving love from someone else. I don't know where this is going, but Janae, that's the question that came for me to you.
So it's interesting because I often have these types of conversations with not just clients, but friends. And while many of them say they desire love, they certainly make it difficult. In particular, women who are iconic or who are well educated, and God forbid that they are also in the either coaching or mental health space. What I see happening is that they want to diagnose or intellectualize every conversation or every everything they see about the person that they may potentially be dating or the potential love interest. And more recently, I was speaking with a friend of mine who was very interested in a gentleman. And he challenged her, and I could tell that it was uncomfortable for her. And while she was sharing it with me, I had to agree with what he was saying. What he said to her was this. He's asking her questions about herself, but her response to the questions was always very vague, or it was as if she was responding in third person. She wasn't giving him the opportunity to see her. She was allowing her professional self and her intelligence to show up. And what he really wanted to see, or really what he wanted, was to feel her. He wanted to feel who she was and not what she was saying, if that makes sense. And so, again, a lot of women who are iconic, high-achieving, professional women, their defense mechanism when dating is to intellectualize or diagnose the person that they're seeing, because it prevents them from having to see themselves. So.
Yes, indeed. And I'm guilty of that in some respects, although to the opposite side, I say that I am not interested in a relationship. And so I totally get the not interested in a relationship at this point, and those who are interested in a relationship and they are not actually being open or preparing for what that looks like. Okay, Shara, I'm coming to you in one moment. I have a question for Ava Laura, and then I'm coming to bring you on stage, okay? So, Ava Laura, I was thinking about, as Victoria was speaking, I was thinking about courage as it relates to living every single day, because how we got here didn't happen overnight, and how we are going to get to the place of freedom and embodiment is not necessarily going to happen overnight either. And I see so many women who are hustling and grinding, but they are not living. And so I would love for you to speak to that.
Yeah, they're definitely not living, nor do they really know what living looks like. I'm going to answer this question, but I also want to speak to what Janae was talking about. Oh my goodness, I have so much to say about that. That could be a whole different conversation. In regards to living, and this might sound really sort of counterintuitive, but we honestly haven't been taught how to live, right? Like, we've been taught how to get an education. We've been taught how to behave. We've been taught how to have your home training, right? We've been taught, so many things, but we haven't actually been taught how to live. I have a podcast called Black Women Leave America. And it's all about women. It's not even so much about leaving America per se, but it's really about women saying, I am not happy, I don't like my life, and I am exercising my options to choose a different life on my terms, like what we're talking about today. And the way that they're deciding to do that is to leave this country, to live a better life, to be able to practice the self-care that we're talking about, to be able to love themselves more, to be able to embrace ease, to release some of the financial pressures and the hustle and bustle and the things like that, that are a part of the American lifestyle. And so what they realize, what I'm saying is they haven't been living. They haven't been being. They've simply just been surviving. They've just been going through the motions of life, doing the things that they've been taught to do. And then they finally reach the mountaintop of the career, the house, the marriage, the kids, whatever it is. And they're like, is this it? Is this what I worked so hard for? This is not living. I'm not happy. This is what I wanted. Realizing that they've done everything that everyone has told them to do, and it didn't get them the life that they really want to live. So a lot of us are having to now go back to the beginning, if you will. That really is the healing work, to learn about like what's living for us, not according to what our parents said, not our grandparents, not our teachers, not other family members, because their idea of living may not be how I want to live. I was taught you have to get a degree. You have to, when I was growing up, my parents are first generation college, right? So my grandparents on my father's side, they had maybe a middle school education. My parents were the first to go to college. They both went on scholarship. Both of them were, extremely poor, didn't have money. On my father's side, there's 8 siblings. They all went to college. They didn't all finish, but they all went to college. So for my family, education became very important. That is the way to change your life. That is the way to improve your life circumstances. So when I grew up, I was taught, you're going to college. So it was never about, do you want to go to college? Do you think that's important? It's no, what college are you going to, and what is your degree going to be in? And that was the way. So if you think about that, what if I didn't want to go to college? What if I just wanted to be an artist? What if I just wanted to backpack and travel the world? What if I wanted to be a travel blogger, right? All the things that, we can do now that growing up, there was no such thing. So for many of us, we didn't have a say really in what we chose to do with our lives. We were taught certain things that we were supposed to do. And then when we got there, we realized it wasn't for us, and now we're having to take our power back and say, no, that's not it. I want to live life on my terms. And so now here's the work of, okay, well, where did you learn these things? How did you learn them? And what really speaks to you? What resonates with your soul? So it's a lot of peeling back the layers, because you're right, we don't know how to live, and it's not our faults. We weren't taught how to live.
Agree 100%. And over here, I am just doing flips, because you're right. I have been a fractional COO and profitability strategist for 36 years, and that is exactly what happens. You hustle and you grind and you get to that mountaintop, and then you realize that you aren't happy, you aren't healthy, because you didn't take care of yourself while you were doing all that hustling and grinding, and you're not necessarily even wealthy. And so this is why I am constantly pushing the fact that scaling is not just systems and SOPs. Scaling means to scale your mind, body, and business. So when you reach that mountaintop, all is good. Everything is good. Not just necessarily your bank account, which isn't promised to be good. In all the getting, you still didn't necessarily accomplish enough to leave the legacy you desired in the first place. So I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Okay. So I promised Shara that I was going to come to her and bring her on stage. If anyone else has a question, a comment, a story, something that they would like to share, and they would like to come on stage, now is the time to raise your hand and we will bring you up. So let's see here. Yay. Hi, Shara. How are you? And please let me know if I am mispronouncing your name. You can unmute and then we'll be able to hear you. Shara may have stepped away because she was patiently waiting, so I am going to bring...
I'm still here. I just wasn't sure if you guys could hear me.
We can hear you now. Absolutely.
So sorry.
No problem. How are you?
I appreciate the space you created. I came in just listening to Victoria. Please make sure I'm saying it right, Miss Gaither. pronounce your name for me so I can say it? My fellow social worker. How do you
It's
pronounce
Ava
it?
Laura.
Ava Laura. Thank
Yeah.
you. I wasn't sure how to pronounce your name. I want to make sure I get people's name right. Janae, listening to all of you just made my heart sing. And it did, because a lot of what you guys spoke about spoke to my life. I'll make this very brief. I don't want to be long-winded. There were a couple of pain points that I heard that I can relate to as someone that's very achieving. Type A personality. But it was very much birthed from not feeling I was good enough. So most people that look at me on LinkedIn, they see all the shininess. And I even shared recently without makeup and all the shine. I'm struggling. And I shared that because oftentimes on LinkedIn, people get the perception that everything's fine. And I've been sharing that way for the last 3.5 years. Some days I'll be looking like who did it and why. Other days I got my hair wrapped up. Recently, my stepfather has terminal cancer. And when I built my business 3 years ago, it was 3.5 years now, I lost my brother. He was 18, got shot and killed. And at the height of my success, I lost an uncle due to cancer. And my stepfather, we're holding on to him for as long as we can. And despite all the success I had, all the revenue and pain points and things that I did for other people, I was in shambles. Ended up in the ER because of my anxiety disorder. And these things I frequently talked about on LinkedIn. I always like people to see not only the nice things, but also the things that are not so, that we don't talk about, a lot of the ugly. I remember 3 years ago I shared, hey, I'm broken on food stamps. I can't pass my board exam. And Ava Laura, you know exactly what that feels, what that life is like. I see you have your LGSW. I was stuck. I couldn't pass. And then I ended up depressed on food stamps, medical assistance. And I had all the education I thought I needed and had 3 kids to take care of at home. I struggled with that, talked about it on LinkedIn, and people got shocked. They was like, oh my God, you're struggling? You got all this stuff going, and that's just what they would see. And I started sharing the depression every day for an entire year. And that's what birthed the space I have now, created for my community. But I share that with you because the mask, I wore that my entire life. My father was a military man, he pushed education a lot. My parents were teenage parents, 3rd generation descendants from Ghana. And they pushed it. I'm the oldest of 5 kids, 1 deceased, oldest child, and the one that was like the go-getter. But a lot of it was fueled by not feeling good enough. And I think Janae also spoke about something to my heart when it came. I was like, where were you when I was going through a divorce? Because a lot of the intellectualization that took place with me was a protective factor when it came to men. I'm now engaged to a beautiful man. He's my high school sweetheart. We've known each other for 20 years. But it took a lot of pain to get to that space. So I just want to say, you beautiful women in this room, thank you for sharing your stories. And thank you for allowing me to share in my vulnerability, to say that I totally understand a lot more than you may know. And I'll conclude there.
That was such an amazing share, Shara. Thank you so much for being open to telling your story. Stories like that is what helps us to know that we're not alone. We feel alone when we are going through, but there are so many other women who are having similar experiences, and knowing that we really, really aren't alone. We are all connected, and just being open to sharing that with people you don't know has blessed me, and I am sure that it has touched someone else. I saw Stacy flashing some emojis up there. So thank you. And speaking of Stacy, I'm coming to you next, Stacy. Do you have a question, comment, a share? How can you join the conversation?
Good morning, and it's a pleasure to see you leading the way with your voice as usual and bringing others with you, and then being the example for those that are still in situations in the darkness. So thank you for bringing these things to light. I know just listening to Shara was that from us having the burnout conversation that we had, just listening to her took me back to those moments as well. So, Shara, I say I did follow you. I also identify with your story and will support you in any way that I can. I actually left and debunked social work because of the struggle that I was going through. And so to see some of the things that people have won in, where we have decided that that was not the route because it was difficult, I'm very proud to see that in other women. What struck me was when you asked Victoria about the story, in the example that she gave, what I actually felt was a parallel in a different area. And when we talk about even coming from another country, within this country, there is separation. And I think a lot of what we go through is that we're so busy trying to separate people out and figure out what's different, instead of trying to look at the things that make us common, that bring us together. And I was born in Fairhope, Alabama, so very southern. I am like 2 miles off of the water, literally, so it's south in the U.S. But when I was brought to Maryland, my mom had moved there for economic situations, and I was 7. I spent 6 months perfecting my English for the same reason. I was teased, I was mimicked, I was set aside and said that I couldn't play because I didn't fit in. And this is also because my mom elected to send me to a Catholic school. So I was not in traditional public school. So there were other standards. I had nuns. The words, of course, me speaking with a Southern dialect, the words were not the same. The tomato, potato, just so many words. And the pain that I felt then was more than I ever versed to my mom. And I quickly became the English major. So I wanted everything spelling. I wanted to be the teacher's pet. I wanted to prove to these children and adults that I was the same as them. And these are children of the same color, teachers of the same color. So the diversity even within, the divide within, is another struggle. So when we look at from the high view, the bird's eye view, we can see some of the separation, but I'd like to ask that people look around at within your own, and is there still separation, and how can we eliminate and alleviate that? That was probably the biggest. Janae, I think I was trying to throw every emoji up while you were speaking, because I totally felt the identities that I've had, the perspectives where I've been received, and even by men in environments. And when I then was in a more personal environment, I felt like I had to compete instead of allowing myself to soften and to be personally me. I still competed. I competed about roles. I competed about revenue. I competed about, awards, to be in conversation, and missed out on several opportunities, I believe, back in the day for that, and actually probably ended up in one of my divorces because of it. And as my mother said, you understand that's because you were trying to wear the pants in the house. So a lot of touching here. And so thank you for bringing these things to the table and allowing people to speak on them, and for being as intuitive as you're being, Dr. Lynette, because I know it is. You're a very structured person. So to allow your intuitiveness to guide you through this has been a win-win. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh, I love that. That just really sincerely touched me, because I know that so many people of color, and so many women specifically, it's a challenge for some to just get up in the morning, to just get out of bed. There is so much heaviness right now in our society, in the world. And a lot of that heaviness is falling on us in a way that we aren't necessarily recognizing because of the gift of our feminine. And I really, 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 I would love for each speaker to comment or share or give feedback, support, whatever is you are feeling led to do in this moment, to what Shara has shared and to what Stacy has shared, and take us to another place. You know, we're here physically, but we don't have to live here every day energetically in pain and in struggle. And so I'm going to go to Victoria first. And then Victoria, if you would pass the mic to Janae, and then Janae, if you would pass the mic to Ava Laura, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh goodness, I have so many things that I would love to say. I think the first thing I'll start off with is, I'm not sure how many of us here today have children, but for those of us who do, or if you don't have a child, maybe think of a child that you really love, nephew, niece, or a child in your life that you really love. I believe that many, and I'm a mother, I have a son who will be 13 in a few months. As a mother, it's important for me to have the same compassion for myself as I would for my son. So we've been talking a little bit about vulnerability. And to me, vulnerability is not an attack on my worth. It's a testament to my humanity. And a lot of people, I believe, are terrified of being vulnerable because vulnerability can often be misconstrued as weakness. But our vulnerability is simply what makes us all human, and it's what unites us because, well, we're not robots. And not that I want to go down the AI route today. I do not want to go down the AI rabbit hole. But I believe that what distinguishes us from, artificial intelligence is the fact that we are all human beings. We're not human doings. And when I had that big realization, that big aha in my mind, that my state of being is infinitely more important than my state of doing. And in that beingness, I can allow myself to be present during the metaphorical climb to the top of the mountain that I believe we are all searching for. I think many of us here on LinkedIn are ambitious, intelligent, capable professionals that are ascending to the top of our own metaphorical mountain. However, if we miss the enjoyment of the journey, then getting to the top was completely meaningless. It's like we missed the entire point of getting to the top. So I want to just conclude my portion here by sharing a quick story. Every single year for the past 10 years, I've been going on solo trips as a way to reconnect with my essence. I've been married for 14 years, and like I said, I have a son. So it can be very easy to get lost in my role as a mother and in my role as a wife and a housewife and a professional and all the multiple roles that I wear. All the multiple hats that I wear. So this past March, I took a solo trip to a town in Mexico that I really love. It's called Tepoztlan. And Tepoztlan is kind of like the Costa Rica of Mexico, if you will. And in Tepoztlan, there's this mountain called El Teposteco. And a lot of people who go to Tepoztlan decide to climb to the top of El Teposteco because there is a temple at the top. And people like to charge and recharge their energy on the temple, and they kind of lay on the sun. And it's just this very kind of spiritual experience. So I decided to attempt to climb to the top of El Teposteco on a Monday. And I started my climb a little late in the day. And I started that journey with my head down, and I was on a mission. I was in mission mode. I was not enjoying the journey at all. I was like, I need to get to the top. I need to get to the top. I was looking to the sides to see if there were people who were walking faster than me. We talked a little, someone mentioned competition. I was absolutely in this weird competitive headspace where I'm like, I need to walk faster than this person. Or, oh shoot, this person over here is running, and maybe I need to walk faster, or maybe I need to run. And I wasn't enjoying the journey at all, right? Okay, so I get to the halfway point, and I was stopped by a group of people at the halfway point. They said, hey, you can't keep climbing. And I'm like, why not? They said, well, we close the park because it takes a long time to get to the top, and it takes a long time to get back down, and it's too late for you to continue climbing. You're going to have to come back and attempt the climb a different day. And I was so frustrated and disappointed and upset. So then I went back down the mountain, and I wasn't able to climb again until Wednesday. Mind you, again, this was Monday because they were closed on Tuesday. So then Wednesday, I am in a completely different headspace. I wake up early. I make sure that I get to the base of this mountain early. I have my coffee, and I have a very specific intention for my climb. The intention for my climb is to simply enjoy the process of getting to the top, to allow myself to be in the presence of nature and to enjoy my surroundings, to enjoy the beautiful scenery and the birds and everything. And I promised myself, I was like, I don't care how fast or how slow the people beside me are climbing. I'm not in competition with them, and I will not behave as such. And so I reached the base of the mountain, opened up at 9 a.m. So I got there a little bit before 9 a.m. And the experience I had on that Wednesday was infinitely different than the experience I had on the Monday. I was climbing with intention. I was savoring every step. I was pausing to take breaks and drink water and raise my gaze up. So many of us are looking down. We're looking down at our phones. We're looking down at our computers. And that day I was conscious about looking up at the sky, looking up at the trees, pausing to drink water and not pushing myself so hard. And there was nobody there that day. I think there was only one person who was was making it down the mountain, and I was the only person climbing up. So I thoroughly enjoyed the process. And once I got to the top and I got to lay on this temple, I had this profound experience. So I was like, oh my goodness, this is exactly what life is about. Life is about truly enjoying, this is what it means to enjoy the journey. I hadn't had that experience yet. And that was a literal example of enjoying the journey to get to the top and not being so, I felt like I had blinders on Monday. And on Wednesday, I took those blinders off. And I wanted to just end with that story because I just would love to encourage everyone to, on your journey to the top of your mountain, give yourself that opportunity to slow down whenever you need to take those breaks, and to, instead of having this feeling of you're competing with the person next to you, look at them and smile and nod and acknowledge that they're doing the same exact thing that you're doing. They're also ascending to the top of their mountain. And so tip your hat to them. You're not in competition with them. They're not in competition with you. You're only in, and it's not even like you're in competition with yourself either. You're just on a journey. And I just want to, again, thank you, Lynette, for this opportunity. And I will pass the mic, I believe, to Janae.
That was amazing, Victoria. Thank you so much. When I consider this topic of leading, living, and loving life on your own terms, I was thinking about a season I was in recently where I was actually second guessing certain things about my approach in business because of something that someone said to me. When women hear certain words like sensual or sensuous, some may become excited or, fascinated, and some may feel uncomfortable and may lead to a place of judgment. And because of that, I had to go within a little bit of a cocoon to really explore within myself and understanding that it takes courage to show up in your true, authentic purpose. And in that, you will gain so much freedom. So I want to leave you with these words. Be delighted and turn on by your own light and your own voice. Become ravished and swooned by your own beauty and your own brilliance. Let the beauty of who you are and what you love be what you do. Allow yourself to be an invitation to pleasure and abundance in all forms. Live your life like a rose, soft, moist, open, and ready to receive. And now I'll pass the mic to Avalara.
Thank you, ladies. This has been, first of all, thank you, Lynette. This has been awesome. I am so happy to be a part of this experience. I don't know if this was recorded or not, but it should have been. A lot of just beautiful wisdom shared. And I'm going to go back to what spoke to me. I related actually to both what Stacey said and what Shara said. And I'm not sure Shara's still here. But I wanted to go back to what Janae was talking about, particularly about our high-achieving women, type A's, overachieving perfectionists, trying to have it all, and the struggle in relationships. Because I think it speaks to everything that we're talking about. I am divorced. I was married for 14 years. I got married in my 20s, and I'll tell anybody, I don't believe that we should get married in our 20s. We are still learning ourselves, and who we marry in our 20s is very different than usually the partner that we need as we age and mature. But I got married in my 20s. I was married 14 years. And, my social work background, psychology background, mental health background, high achieving woman, been there, done that, got the t-shirt. I thought that when I got a divorce, I would easily be able to get back into another relationship. I actually enjoy being married. A lot of people, after that don't necessarily want to get married again. I was excited to do that and do it right this time. It took, I want to say 5 years before I finally met somebody that I would actually really consider marrying. And we are in a phenomenal relationship, very happy. But I say all of that to say that the journey of being authentic, right? Because where you really see yourself most is in relationship. That is where the masks have to come off. That is where you see your mirror, what you attract, what you allow, how much you really do love yourself. What is your self-worth? How are you taking care of yourself? All of these things are going to come up in your relationships. The trauma, your belief systems, your ability to deal with conflict. And what happens, a lot of high achieving women, we work so hard to get where we are. We work so hard. We are so tired. We are so burnt out that we don't have the energy. We don't have the reserves for ourselves, let alone now for a relationship. And we fail to realize that relationships don't just happen, right? I grew up thinking that when my parents met in college, it was, that sort of typical or fairy tale love story. They met early 20s. They met, they got married, they've been together, they've married, they celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary last year. I thought, I went to Howard University. I was like, I'm going to meet my husband in college. That, of course, did not happen, right? A lot of us think that we're just going to fall into a relationship, that it'll just happen. We don't realize how much work that takes. So if you're so burnt out in your career, in your business, with all the things that you have going on in life, how do you have the energy and the reserves to pour into a relationship? Because it takes that. Your certifications, your degrees, your master's degree, your JD, your doctorate is not going to help you in your relationship. And so what we do is we do try to intellectualize, because that's our strong suit. That is what we've had to use. And we don't know how to come from that heart space. We don't know how to be feminine. We don't know how to just be, because we've had to end up being everything else to be quote unquote successful. And to be in a healthy relationship requires a very different type of energy. It requires you to really, truly be you. Because if you're not you, if you don't take off the mask, you are not going to get the relationship that you really, truly desire. You're going to get a mess. So I say all of that to say that relationships with ourselves and relationships with others end up being the ultimate test, if you will, to how we are taking care of ourselves. That's where everything is going to show up. And so if you're recognizing that you just don't have the energy, you don't have the desire, right? I'm sure Janae would agree with this. You no longer have a sex drive, or you're easily irritable. Everything is just annoying you. So many things. That is a sure sign. You know what? I really got to up my self-care. My self-care is not where it needs to be. It's showing up in how I feel about myself. It's showing up in my health, and it's showing up in my relationships with others. And ultimately, what it comes down to, none of us are successful if we don't have our health, if we don't have our mental health, if we don't feel good about ourselves, if we're not happy in our own skin, and if we're not in fulfilling relationships with others. No amount of success is going to make up for that. So I really implore you to prioritize your self-love, prioritize your self-care, and prioritize your relationships. And if you do that, everything else that you desire will come.
That was so amazing. All of your responses and your thoughts, leadership, information, prose, I just felt like I was in the best place ever during this event. It just felt so good to my mind, my body, my energy. I feel uplifted. I feel free. And I believe that others who have been in attendance would agree with that. This is a conversation that has so many branches and avenues that we need to have again, that we need to take some of these thoughts and topics and go deeper into. And so this being only our second LinkedIn Audio Live event, I am complete, I am full, I am overjoyed, and I am officially declaring that one of the Wednesdays of every month is going to be Women's Wednesday, because we have some things we need to talk about and we have only touched the surface. So I definitely hope that my speakers will come back, whether they are on the stage, in the audience. I hope the audience will come back and bring some friends with them. Since we did have an opportunity to open the floor and allow our guests to come on stage, instead of us ending right now to go to an after party in the comments, I have one last question. And that is how we are going to end the call, with this question. And then after we end, my request, my ask of the speakers is to please go and check to see if there are any comments in the comments of the event page that you would like to respond to. But more importantly, as a speaker, if you have an opportunity, if you have an offer, if you have something that you would like to invite the community to partake in, please leave that in the comments as well. And so here is my last question. As women, we always say we can do it ourselves. I don't need a man. I don't need help. We are challenged by asking for help and believing that we can do it all. And we know that's not true. We don't always know that, though, because even when we have arrived, we still can come across situations that cause us, those of us on the stage, to stumble. And so what I would like each of you to speak to is this. I believe we would all agree that we need each other. We need community. We need to be connected. But I would like to hear from you. What does that mean? What does that look like? How do we move forward with being a collective instead of being so divided? And I'm going to start with Janae on this one.
All right, so I think that you've done an amazing job demonstrating that here and now. This platform and this particular stage and this topic and the synergy between the speakers is a great way to get started. I believe that more conversations like this will allow us to get together and share our brilliance and uplift us as women. Any types of membership programs, any types of events that we can collaborate on together will also be amazing. But again, you've demonstrated it today, and I believe if we continue to show up here with you and continue to show up on the platforms of other people, those who have podcasts and similar types of platforms, is a great way for us to move and continue growing together.
Thank you so much, Janae, and thank you for your yes to being here today and to sharing. I appreciate you. Ava Laura, what would you say to how do we move forward as a collective from here?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And, I'm a huge proponent of community and sisterhood. If you follow me on LinkedIn, it is one of the things that I talk about for my journal, Girl, Live Your Fucking Life. I, had a whole brunch event in May. I'll be having another one in October. Really a celebration of sisterhood and self-love. I really believe that many of us haven't healed because we don't have community. I believe that is a huge part of the healing process that this culture doesn't do a good job of promoting. A lot of us live away from our families, right? The hustle and bustle, you work all day, you come home, you're tired, you have your kids and things like that. So it's very hard to embrace community when you're always working, or when you're not working, you're now tired and you have to try to take care of yourself and then try to take care of your family. One of the things that I do is I have to schedule sisterhood time. So I actually, try. I'm not always successful, but try. I have certain friends that we at least try to meet up at least once a month, whether it's for brunch or a tea or, some type of activity. And we sometimes have to do it months in advance because that's how busy we are. But the goal is to get each other on the calendar. And so really making it a priority, looking for events. I'm here in the DC area. There is no shortage of events. Feel free to follow me. Like I said, I have a lot of events. I also speak at a lot of events. So I share those events out when I'm speaking at events as well. But I think a lot of it is really just making it a priority, understanding that it is important. And then, asking others. There's a lot of groups on Facebook as well if you're on Facebook. So it has to be a priority for us because we are so busy. It has to be something that you want to do, and it has to be something that you decide that you're going to do it, even if it is, like I said, once a month, like I do with some of my friends, to make sure that happens. And it's amazing how fulfilling it is. We can sit there and talk for hours, literally. It's like we're starved, for that time with each other and don't even realize it. So prioritize it in your life, and then, find some events and or some people that you want to make sure you stay connected to, and then just do it.
I love the ending, which is just do it, because you're right. We are so busy. We have so much on our plate that the things that give us pleasure keep getting pushed down the to-do list. And we do have to start prioritizing our relationships. I know that one of the highlights of my life is my bestie time. I absolutely love when I get to have girl time with my bestie, and what we think is going to be a couple of hour conversation winds up being 10 or 12 hours of us talking on the phone. You would think, what in the world can two people have to talk about? But just like Ava Laura just shared, it's so much, and sometimes it's nothing. And so it's just it's the community. It's that time together, being in energy and being in spirit. So I absolutely love that. Victoria, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lynette. Okay, well, first of all, I want to acknowledge Stacy, Julio, and Rudy for being here. I know this has been a wonderful, long LinkedIn audio event. I just want to thank the three of you for being here and for listening and participating. Okay. Oh, goodness. I have so much to say. First of all, an affirmation that I have been telling myself for several years now is that I am safe enough to soften and trust. I believe oftentimes we don't prioritize pleasure, or we don't prioritize community because many times we've lost trust in others, and we've lost trust in the people that we love because we've been hurt or whatnot. So I have been reminding my body, reminding my nervous system that I am now in a position where I am safe enough to soften, and I am safe enough to trust. And Ava Laura said that she schedules sisterhood time, which I absolutely love, and I could not agree more. I have been saying for many years now, I've been telling my husband that one of the best things of my life has been dating women. because sometimes I will meet women at networking events or just, I don't know, like a random place like a park. And I will just be taken aback, by this woman's intelligence or her beauty or her charisma or her aura. And I have no problem now telling a woman like, hey, I would love to grab coffee with you, or let's eat lunch together. To me, just like you were saying, Lynette, that is, it's such a gift for me now. I do feel safe enough to ask women out on girl dates. And I would, and it is something that fills my soul cup. There's different things that fill different cups in my life. And right now, connecting with women in that way is just so fulfilling. And it's creating that sense of trust and safety in women again, because I think for the longest time, there was this weird toxic energy of competition between women. And I'm not about that. I've never been about that. I am all about collaboration over competition. And so that's one of the things that I personally love to do. And I also want to say this. I truly, wholeheartedly believe that the idea of separation, because it is an idea, the idea of separation is just an illusion. It really is an illusion. Because if you think about it, our bodies have separate systems, right? The nervous system, the digestive system, all these different systems, the muscular system. Like there's different systems in our bodies. And while they are different, they all need to work in synergy and in tandem in order for us to be fully functioning human beings. And so we are also not separate, just like our different organs and our different systems are not separate from other systems. They're all working in unison, they're all working in tandem. We as individuals are also not separate from each other. We've been sold this idea of separatism, and we've bought this idea for centuries, but it's an idea that I don't want to continue quote unquote purchasing anymore. In fact, I stopped purchasing that idea years ago. It's just not an idea I buy into, because I've had so much proof of the fallacy of the idea of separation. We're just not separate. It's just not true. And when you are in the energy of someone, if you are sharing a space with someone, you can literally feel what I'm saying. When you're in someone's aura, when you're in someone's energy, you feel connected to them. They feel connected to you. You don't even have to touch. You're just being in that person's presence is proof of connection. And what you do will affect me. What I do will affect you. And now with, the internet, we are all like wildly connected. And don't even get me started on nature. So again, I just want to leave that there, that this idea of separation is just, it's simply not something that I buy into. And I encourage you to prove to yourself that the idea of separation is false. I also want to leave with saying one last thing. Lynette, you talked about intuition earlier, and as a woman, that is something that I've leaned into during my career, and it's never, ever, ever led me astray. And I believe that intuition is a sign of our innate feminine wisdom, and it's, again, also a sign of safety and trust. And it's something that us women we're born with. All of us are intuitive, right? And women have an extremely heightened, developed sense of intuition, but many of us weren't taught or raised or even trained to use our intuition. So I want to leave by saying this. Your intuition will always, always whisper. That's why it's so easy to ignore. And that's why it's so easy to miss the voice of your intuition, where your mind is very loud. Your mind likes to yell and scream and like kind of be obnoxious sometimes. Whereas your intuition is soft and it's gentle and it whispers. It's this voice of wisdom. And so anytime you hear that soft, gentle, kind, loving whisper, know that that's the voice of your intuition. And the only way that you can hear it is by slowing down enough to hear the voice of your intuition. And just know that it will never, ever, ever lead you astray. And, male or female, lean on that voice. Don't be scared of trusting that voice. I've been trusting that voice since I was in 5th grade. That was the first time I started developing my relationship with my intuition, and it's one of the best relationships I've ever developed in my life. So I just want to encourage everybody listening today to trust the voice of your intuition.
And with that, we are definitely full. I want to leave you with a statement. First, as Victoria said, Stacy and Julio and Rudy and now Gabriella, thank you so much for being here, for spending this time with us. And here, we talked about this whole intuition thing. So guess what, guys? Check this out. The way that I plan to end this, I literally had to write this down. And it says, let me leave you with a quote from one of last week's speakers. Gabriella Garzon said, we are different cultures, but we have the opportunity to create one world. Why I am stressing this to you is because Gabriella just showed up on the call a few minutes ago. Of all the people, of all the calls, of all the times in the world, that's the quote I chose. That's the speaker from last week that I picked a quote from, and here she be. We can't make this stuff up. Live the legacy you want to leave. And that's how it turns into all of what we have been sharing with you today.